rights. I suggest the issue is shifting to First and 14th Amendment rights as the tide is turning against people of faith. And we are people of faith. America the Beautiful is preparing to become America the Intolerant. America will challenge our right to publicly preach against any sinful lifestyle if we're not careful. The First Amendment says that Congress shall not make any law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Do you not know if they label preaching from our pulpits as hate speech, they will say to us that we can no longer broadcast over the airwaves because taxpayers regulate and pay for all of that. If we have them to label our assembly and our coming together saying that we stand for families and that anything other than marriage between a man and a woman, listen here, they will say that our assembly is not lawful. We have to be aware that these days are coming. The prophetic and moral voice is starting to speak in corners here and there. And it should be lifted up from street corners to those houses where prayer meetings are going on, to storefront churches and to cathedrals like this. The voice has got to be made clear. It must be clarion that we are going to preach the truth of God. It is also a 14th Amendment issue. And the 14th Amendment says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. And listen, whether you know it or not, if you cannot worship like you want, you're not having due process. If you can't believe like you want, you're not getting due process. If they make this thing a political law and pass it and forbid you to express freely what you're about and put us in jail, give us fines, take us off the airwaves, say that we have to use literature and cannot use literature that speaks the other way, we're not going to be given our 14th Amendment protections. Too many people have fought and died through civil rights to make this possible. There's a lot here at stake. There's a lot for us to consider. For us as a church to conform with or to appease society would be a shame. And there are clergymen who have now started to abandon the Word of God. Thank God for preachers like the Reverend Bill Owens and like the Bishop Gerald Glenn, who are going to stand on the Word of God. Hence, there is coming an imposition. It's going to be faith versus faith. A dichotomy is developing between believers of the faith community. Orthodox and liberal theologians have begun to publicly clash about the interpretation and the application of the biblical narrative. A theological hermeneutical war will cause misguided preachers to force a division in the church over this issue of homosexual rights, gay unions, same-sex marriages, etc. But I'm here to tell the church, well, Jesus said it clearly that a house divided cannot stand. It's time for us to make up our mind. Does the Bible say what it said? Does it mean what it says? Are we going to mean it and use it as it says? We have a decision to make, because faith versus faith. You're going to one day be on a job when someone from another church says, well, we don't see it that way. And listen here, you have to then be able to say, well, I don't see it that way either. What do you base yours on? Well, the law says, well, I'm going to tell you, I base mine on the Word of God. Yeah. Then there are political forces gathering. The world is calling the church folks, as I said, haters. This rights versus faith issue is developing in America, and it should not be any such thing, but it's coming. At issue will be the preaching of the gospel, as I said. Will preaching be considered the word of God or hate speech? Homosexuals want people to believe that they are being castigated and excommunicated from congregations because of their sexual orientation and practice. I have personally never, somebody say never, never seen a homosexual excommunicated from the church. Never seen it done. Never seen anybody usher them out and throw them out. Never. Is the homosexual being preached to or counseled? Yes. However, no more than the heterosexual person who believes in his life of promiscuity. Haters, not us. We don't hate anybody, but we are going to tell the truth. The homosexual is not a special class that is being systematically discriminated against. Their homosexuality is not a civil right. It's not a civil right. Their homosexuality is a sin. Let me state emphatically, homosexuals are entitled to jobs, housing opportunities, and the dignity of human rights. They are people. They are some of our brothers and some of our sisters. They are our cousins. They are our next door neighbors. And for truth, they may even be some of our church members. And they deserve the dignity of fellowship, friendship, to be loved, to work. And we are not demonizing or putting them down. Hear me now. We've got to well define the nuances of this argument. We've got to appreciate where the slants and the angles are. We've got to bring out of the gray areas and bring into the full light of the world where we stand and what we're talking about. Tell your neighbor, I don't hate anybody. That's right. Implicit in the Constitution are also guarantees. Listen here, the Constitution guarantees people implicitly the right of divorce. They do. The Constitution guarantees people the right to have out of wedlock births. And nobody going to jail for having babies out of wedlock. Huh? The Constitution gives them the right to cohabitate. Some people got more aunts and uncles that poor children don't know what the family's about. That's Uncle Joe, and that's Aunt Mary. They don't know who's the family member, in the front door, out the back door. Two at a time, whatever it is. That's just how it is. And there are no constitutional violations there. But let me tell you something, the church is mutually dealing with all of these people. And we call these situations sin. We cannot do otherwise than to preach and stand in support of solid nuclear families, chaste living, righteousness, and a commitment one to the other. Until death do they stay, until they part that way. Should the secular society declare our preaching as hate speech? The possibility of having religious broadcasting, as I said, taken off the air, that is a fact. What are we going to do about it? I think it's time now for us to wake up, smell the coffee, and know there's a new day dawning in America. And we better get ready. Yes, we should. All persons should have the right to determine their course in life. Rights, however, don't preclude the preacher's right to encourage moral change. The church is the significant and chief change agent that has been established and placed in the world for righteousness. Homosexuality